Welcome, brave souls, to Fear File Chronicles, your one-way ticket to spine-chilling stories and terrifying tales. Tonight, we'll be diving into the darkest corners of the human mind with the story, Schizophrenic, penned by the twisted mind of a talented yet sadly unknown author. Together, we'll explore the unexplained and face our deepest fears. But before we begin, if you enjoy trembling in terror, be sure to hit that like button, share this video with your fellow fear fanatics, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to click the bell notification so you never miss an eerie episode. Your support truly means the world to us, so feel free to leave a comment below to join the Fear File Chronicles community. Now, without further ado, let's unravel the mysteries of the unknown together as we delve into tonight's fear-inducing story, Schizophrenic. Dim the lights and prepare yourself for a chilling journey into the Fear File Chronicles. It's currently 5:13 p.m. here. The sun is shining and it's looking like a great day. At 6 p.m., I won't be around anymore. I'm not going to reply to any of you. I have a story to tell, and there are so many things left unanswered that I'm too afraid to delve into too much detail. I just don't know what's happening. I don't know if what I tell you could put you in danger. I just don't know anything. Well, I'll get to it at the end. For now, I'll start at the beginning. I moved into the complex when I was 24. Describing it as a complex may be an overstatement. It's really just an apartment block, specifically designed for the rehabilitation of the mentally unwell. It's home to a diverse group of individuals, from schizophrenics to those severely depressed, and everyone in between. To tell this story correctly, I need to start from the beginning. I trained to become a nurse in Australia. There, I enrolled in a double-degree program, studying both arts and nursing. For the arts portion, I majored in psychology, sparking my interest in psychiatric nursing. I did my placements in psychiatric units at various hospitals and, during my final year, specifically at a mental hospital. This is where I met Brian. Brian was an interesting case. He exhibited symptoms consistent with paranoid schizophrenia, but developed these unusually early at the age of 16. He was resistant to multiple forms of medication and found little relief from psychotraining, therapy, or even a course of ECT. His family gradually came to rely more on institutional care for their son, and eventually, when he was 22, he became a permanent resident at the hospital where I was working, St. John of God in Burwood, Sydney. From the moment I met Brian, I felt a strong connection. Despite his advanced symptoms, including severe auditory, tactile, and visual hallucinations, as well as extreme paranoia, I was inexplicably drawn to him. Physically, he was just an ordinary guy, around my age, with shortish, messy brown hair. He was quite fit, maintaining his fitness by exercising in his room at the hospital. By the time I started working there, his room had been personalized, complete with a bar across his doorway for his workouts. Brian was always open with me. I would often join him in the smokers area during my breaks to chat and share a cigarette. Impressed by my work, the hospital offered me a job when I finished my degree, which I accepted. Brian and I kept in touch through email after I left, and we developed a close friendship. It was another 5 months before I completed my degree, and 2 more before I started work, taking a break over Christmas. Once I started at St. John of God, I grew even closer to Brian over the next 2 years. We shared a lot in common in terms of our opinions, personalities, and tastes. I used to bring him new music, books, TV shows, and DVDs, and we'd avidly discuss them, as well as the happenings among the other patients at the hospital. When we weren't together, we'd often use the hospital's Wi-Fi network to stream videos of ourselves over a VLC media player. I found it hilarious when Brian would share a video of himself, causing harmless chaos in the car park, like throwing pebbles at people and yelling about the return of the voices until they scampered away. I admit it wasn't very professional, but it was nonetheless funny. Eventually, the hospital decided to buy a set of apartments with government funding and in association with health authorities. These apartments would serve as either rehabilitation facilities or permanent residences for mentally ill patients requiring long-term care or those ready for societal reintegration. I was offered the position of primary caretaker, which would involve living on site and managing the patient's medication and overall well-being. This was a significant responsibility for someone my age, and I told them I needed time to think. During a break, I shared the news with Brian over a cigarette. He had already heard about the plans, as he was scheduled to move into the apartments as a long-term resident. He encouraged me to accept the job, murmuring that I would be able to protect him. Usually, schizophrenic patients believe in their delusions and what the voices tell them. It's their reality. Brian, however, had what we call insight. He understood his illness and knew the symptoms weren't real, merely part of his condition. So his request for protection came as a surprise. What from?
The lady that comes at night.
Schizophrenia sufferers often build relationships with their hallucinations. These hallucinations are consistent ones that recur throughout their illness. These hallucinations are unique, featuring distinct characteristics, names, and mannerisms. Brian frequently reported visits from a lady that comes at night. However, when doctors explained that this was just a symptom of his condition, he stopped sharing about it. Brian, you know that isn't real, right? It's just a part of your condition, I would say.
It is real.
He would insist. His certainty unsettled me. I maintained composure, asking him to describe what he thought he was seeing.
There is no way for me to describe her, unless you see her for yourself, and hear that god-awful noise.
After some consideration, I accepted a new job offer. The pay was significantly better. The role was exactly what I was seeking. Therefore, I moved to Camden. Camden is a somewhat rural town near Sydney. It has constant new developments. My apartment was situated somewhat far from the central district of Camden. It was in a relatively unpopulated area. I didn't mind. I found the peace and quiet refreshing. Over the following years, residents came and went. I made new friends in the town, but my bond with Brian grew stronger. We lived a few doors apart. We often spent time together. We shared a beer, watched a movie, or simply hung out. In retrospect, I shouldn't have let him drink. But that's a discussion for another time. Sadly, Brian's condition started deteriorating. He frequently mentioned a lady who visited him during the night, and sometimes even during the day. His deteriorating state was reported to his doctors. They evaluated him, but concluded there was no need for hospitalization unless his condition worsened further. Brian was smart. He seemed more open with me than with his doctors. He feared they would change his living conditions. He feared they would increase his medication dosage. And he feared they would repeat the same advice he had heard countless times. So I did my best to support and care for him. We shared internet in the complex. This allowed us to keep up our VLC streaming parties and regularly share laughs. We often left the media player open, so occasionally a random video would start playing. We both looked forward to these moments as much as we had in the hospital. Brian seemed more relaxed when he was with me. He talked openly about his experiences, but he confessed he felt unsafe when alone. It's challenging not to get entangled in schizophrenic delusions. Every aspect of his stories was well detailed and realistic. This caused me to momentarily believe them, only to remember his condition later. He didn't provide much detail, except on specific occasions. And even then, the detail was often vague or superficial. He informed me he had noted the exact time the visits would begin. 3:20 a.m. What noises, Brian?
The meowing. It sounds like a single cat is trapped in my apartment. But I don't own a cat, and there are none around here. It's raspy, like a cat with a dry throat.
He explained. He noted the meows would begin distantly, then gradually move closer until they were near his room. That's when he would see her. What does she look like? I asked. He physically shuddered and murmured,
Dirty.
but he refused to elaborate further repeating,
"There is no way to explain unless you see her for yourself."
Brian's condition continued to decline. He requested a camera. He hoped to provide evidence of his hallucinations to me. He wanted to convince me of his perceived danger. However, I knew I couldn't acquiesce. Affirming his hallucinations could worsen his condition. As his social interaction decreased, our communication largely occurred via emails and VLC. I only saw him to ensure he was taking his medication and maintaining his hygiene. One late night, I returned from an outing with friends. Camden offered little, but a few decent pubs provided a clean, quiet space. The apartments were silent and dark as I made my way home. Upon entering, I immediately went to my computer. It had become a habit. I missed Brian's sociability. I enjoyed our online interactions as an alternative. I rarely turned off my computer. iTunes was usually running, the power cord plugged in. I sat down and touched the trackpad. VLC was still open. I must have been watching American Dad earlier and forgotten to close it. The top bar of VLC simply read xlivid.avi. It was an eerie sight. A darkened bedroom met me. The moonlight washed in through Brian's windows, and a soft breathing signaled that he was asleep. The door was off to the right of his bed, and a desk directly in front. I had been there before, and realized that he must have been using the camera on his laptop to film his room when I hadn't gotten him one. The video stated that it went for 10 minutes, and I watched the first 20 seconds without anything happening. Then I skipped to 1 minute. Still nothing. I was about to skip further in when I heard a strange noise. It was almost indistinguishable from Brian's own breathing, but it was there. I got some headphones and listened closer. A crooning came from somewhere outside the room. Then it began to grow in magnitude after a short while, and I realized that it was a meowing. I saw Brian twitch and gasp awake as the noise magnified for both of us. I saw his pale face in the moonlight as he pulled the laptop from his right side, tilting it to capture the ceiling and a brief glimpse of his face before training it on the door. The moonlight shone through the uncurtained window. The meowing continued to grow louder and louder, seemingly moving down the hallway outside his room. This went on for about 4 minutes until the door handle pulled down and the door swung open. I heard Brian inhale reflexively and hide away in the top corner of his bed, moving up against the wall. Then slowly I saw a face begin to move into the room. It moved slowly past the edge of the door at about knee height. But this was like nothing I've ever seen. The head sat locked, staring at the bed and camera from the moment it came past the door, cocked diagonally to the right. It was clearly a female head, with medium-length, lank, dirty blonde hair hanging down below it. But the eyes were wrong, gaping black holes. No blood, just what appeared to be dirt, like the body had been buried and then dug up. Then the mouth came through the doorway, and I had to avert my gaze briefly. The jaw was clearly broken, the mouth wrenched wide and hanging at an odd angle, and drooping downward, flopping lifelessly, and it moved forward and meowed. The moonlight showed the entire scene as if through a filter, making the entire thing surreal and even more gruesome. Then the girl came entirely into the room, and I saw why it was at knee height. It was crawling on its hands and feet, its knees pushed painfully above its back at an impossible and strange angle, bent up in the middle. She wore clothes, a jumper, and a skirt, but the moonlight washed the color from them. She was dirty, all over. Everything was raggedy and worn. Her face never left the bed and laptop, and she started toward them, her face growing closer and closer as she edged nearer, until it was obscured from vision by the bed. I sat terrified, unable to move. Silence washed over everything, except for Brian's rapid breathing. Then the girl rose up. It was excruciating. The meow became more violent and loud as her bones snapped and cracked back into place to allow her to stand. It all happened so slowly that it was mortifying. Then she turned and sat on the bed, her back facing Brian. The meowing calmed, but I was shocked and terrified beyond belief. Then, after a minute, she went silent and still. I thought that it was over, and she was about to snap back down and crawl away. And then, with a loud snap, her head pivoted and fixed on Brian. The broken jaw fixed in what I could only describe as some sort of horrific smile. It was then that I knew I had to get to Brian. The video still had another minute or two to go, but I didn't care. I just bolted through my house and out the front door, nearly skittering over as I turned a sharp right and ran the 2 doors down to his place. I hammered on the door and yelled for him to answer. When he didn't, I simply shouldered it until it burst open. The house was silent, and I ran directly to his room. The door was already open. I ran in and looked around. Brian was on the bed, the laptop shut next to him. His eyes stared blankly at the window, and I said his name softly, trying to get a response. But none was given. I moved slowly to him, and then reached out and touched where his jugular would be. A single tear fell from his eye as he turned his face to mine. He was alive. Brian remained unresponsive as I tried to rouse him. Just cried silently on the bed. Catatonia is another part of schizophrenia. However, after the video I had just witnessed, I wasn't sure if he actually had the condition or not. I searched the room and the rest of the house, turning on all the lights and being absolutely cautious as I went around. But nothing came to me. I called the authorities and told them what had happened. They came by shortly after, and I made my statements as they double-checked the apartment. They were stiff and rather standoffish, but even I couldn't deny that the whole situation was entirely far-fetched. In fact, I started to doubt it myself. Even with the video on my computer, they took Brian's laptop as evidence and suggested I call the hospital. They said it was clear that Brian had had a serious hallucination and didn't seem well at all. My heart sank as I knew that they didn't believe a word of it. I asked if they wanted to see my computer as well, but they said that it wouldn't be necessary. They'd go through Brian's laptop and get back to me with what they found. I insisted that the video came up on my laptop as xlivid.avi and that they should search for something by that name. I called the hospital and told them that Brian had had an extreme hallucination and needed to be admitted. I didn't bother saying anything about the girl. I was so unsure now of what I had seen that I felt a little insane myself. They asked if he was a danger to himself at that time, and I said that it was likely. I didn't want him to be in the house, to be honest. I wanted him safely in an institution. Looking back, I'm not too sure if I wanted that so that he would be safe or so that he was away from where I was. The hospital said that they'd send someone over. It was almost morning anyway. I could see the hue of the sky changing to give way to the day to come. I hung up, and the officers bade their goodbyes and told me to call should anything change or happen. Then I went back inside to Brian. He sat unmoved from his last position, the tears still dribbling slowly down his face. It would be an hour or so before anyone from the hospital got here, and it would have been negligent and unprofessional of me to leave Brian on his own. Apart from that, he was my friend, and I wasn't about to leave him by himself. We didn't talk, and I didn't bother trying. We just sat until the people came and took him away. The police never got back to me. I ended up quitting my job and moving back to where I was born to live with my parents. Then I moved out again to live in a place of my own. I'm currently renting an apartment in Orange in NSW. I was working here, but since that night I have lived in hell. I've since stopped working. I've stopped everything. And that is my story. I see her now. At first it was just the soft meowing. I used to hear it and sit bolt upright and convince myself I had heard it in a dream. Then I used to hear it when I was already sitting bolt upright. And now I see her, always in houses or buildings, never in the outdoors. She comes to me in the day and the night. It's begun not to matter. Just the cracking of bones and the shrill cry she gives. That is all I hear now. She tried to speak to me, but it was just gargling. Like her lungs are full of water, and it's just trying to come out of her mouth. I don't know if she wants to hurt me or if she just wants me to help her. I am telling this story. I don't really know why. I would like to warn you, but I don't know what from. I don't know anything. I don't know why this is happening. I keep thinking to every horror story or movie I've ever encountered and think on what would cause something like this to happen to a particular person. It could have been the video, but I don't have it. It might have been me responding to the cat-like noises in my house, but I didn't. I don't know why this has happened, but it doesn't matter now. I haven't heard of Brian since I left Sydney. He could be dead now. Otherwise, he is still in St. John of God or some other asylum now. I wish him the very best. The video is most likely on Brian's laptop in police custody at Camden Police Station. But I don't know. I don't care. She's here now. I am in the basement. I know that she will crack her neck and gurgle up at me as I stand up there. She will watch me drop. And then, I don't know. Goodbye. Well, my friends, we've reached the end of tonight's chilling tale, Schizophrenic, by a talented yet sadly unknown author. I hope you've enjoyed our descent into darkness and that you'll carry a piece of the Fear File Chronicles with you as you drift into uneasy dreams. If our story left you shivering and shaking, don't forget to like this video, share it with others who crave a good scare, and subscribe to the Fear File Chronicles for more haunting horrors. Remember to hit the bell notification so you're always among the first to know when a new nightmare awaits. As always, we appreciate your support and would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Sharing your fears and frights with us truly means a lot, so don't be shy to engage with our sinister community. Until next time, remember to embrace the darkness, for it is within the shadows that our most terrifying stories are born. Good night, and stay scared.